Welcome to the Fabric of America, the podcast that celebrates small businesses and the remarkable stories that weave our communities together. We're your hosts, Melissa Otto
and Matt Banover.
Matt is a fashion designer passionate about storytelling through style.
And Melissa is a seamstress on a mission to make sewing cool again and inspire the next generation. We sit down with small business owners, artisans, and dreamers to uncover the stories behind their brand, what inspires them, challenges them, and keeps them creating.
Because we believe that behind every idea, every design, every stitch, there's a story worth sharing. So grab a drink from your favorite local shop and join us as we weave together conversations about passion, perseverance, and the power of small business.
Melissa, we are often bringing up this notion of expectations in the tailoring world, that a seamstress is like this old Italian lady or this
Oh, the
old
stereotypes.
lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, or like people expect to see me as like this old person. And that's just not it. Like, you and I are young, vibrant, full of life, and a lot of the
Well,
manufacturers.
we got a few extra gray hairs these days,
I
but
know. Well, we're gonna dye this.
overall, yes, we are
But
young
no,
and fun and sassy, and we're
exactly.
social.
We're 30, flirty, and thriving.
Definitely.
And and then we talk to our manufacturers who are also mostly young people. And
Yeah.
like there's a very of a youthfulness to the people that we're talking to, but I haven't realized it until now. One of the missing components of this is technology,
Yes.
and you had the perfect person to
I
bridge that
did,
gap.
didn't I?
Why? You did something, and I'm so proud of
Wow.
you. Yeah. So tell who did we just talk to?
So we spoke with Nancy Rhodes from Alternew. And so Nancy and I got in touch at first a couple of years ago, when the New York Times had done an article that had included this community that I had helped found called Stitch Collective.
Well,
And so
furfles.
Nancy had gotten in touch with me and was just like, "Hey, I starting developing this company called Alternew. We're really trying to revolutionize the way that like seamstresses and tailors do business." And she wanted to just kind of chat more. And as we have talked throughout the years, and you'll kind of find this out from our chat with her, her business model, we'll call it, her ideas have sort of evolved into this incredible intersection between seamstresses and tailors, consumers, and now retail brands. And you'll hear her compare it to, the way that like an open table has sort of revolutionized like making a reservation and getting to a restaurant, or the way Airbnb has for like the way we vacation and how we're looking up this hospitality and accommodations. And she had said at some point that this tailoring industry was like ripe and ready for innovation. And it was just something that was so obvious,
Yeah,
but that I had never thought of in that way. And you hear her talk about it and you're like, oh my gosh, duh.
yeah,
Absolutely. This is the new way.
yeah, yeah. It really, it's so it is like you said, it's like, well, yeah, duh. Everybody else uses technology for
Everyone's innovative. Like, why
yeah,
not us?
for food, for where they sleep. Like, why not what they wear? So, I mean, what she was saying was so just uh, uh, like, yeah, like why are
Yeah.
we not doing
And
this
and the data
more?
that she uses to back it up. So like you and I think, we wax poetic a lot about sustainability and circular fashion and things like that. But Nancy is someone who is amazing because she has hard numbers and data to back up why all of this is important, why it's a necessity, and why it's really, really viable for businesses and not just the small mom and pop shops, but the big retail brands, how this is actually going to help them and their bottom dollar. And I think it's a way that we as the clientele and the consumers can help to sort of shift this mindset. Like we always say, like capitalism's not bad, it's kind of the consumerism that's bad. So it can kind of help shift the mindset, I think, of the general public when we're seeing our products made better, to last longer, to see it backed up by a company, and
Yeah.
where that brings us in the future if a company is able to make even better money and profits from actually doing the right thing and keeping these garments in circulation.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's just get into it because
I
you and I
know. Enough
can
yapping.
pretend like we understand technology as but let's leave it to the expert. And I mean, really just this was such a cool episode. So please enjoy our interview with Nancy Rhodes. Nancy Rhodes, introduce yourself by explaining what it is you do a little bit.
Yes, I am the co-founder and CEO of Alternew, and we are modernizing fashion's care and repair experience. So we're doing that today by helping turn a fashion brand's after sales journey into a profit driver by bringing alterations or repairs back to the brand experience. So for the brand, that means they're getting to have better retention, better acquisition. Today, they're spending up to $200 billion in returns and churn. Basically, the problem is that brands are spending billions of dollars to get the customer to the register, right? Up to $130 per person, only to lose them after the sale. And the after sales journey is totally ineffective because all they're doing is mitigating risks. They're spending $200 billion just to do like logistics for returns and like loyalty programs and all of these different things that aren't actually reaching the root cause, which is that 70% of all apparel returns are due to poor fit, and alterations or repairs are a big piece of solving for that. And so that's where we see an opportunity to not only support brands getting a better and more authentic experience for their customers, but also tailors. So we're tapping into existing infrastructure, helping skilled tailors today get access to new business and modernize their operations because it's a fragmented, antiquated space. There's all of this great artisanship and skill out there that's not being tapped into effectively. So they get new business, they get to modernize their operations, and then customers reduce that trust gap because we know it's this evergreen search just to find a tailor. And then you find a tailor and you're like, you know what? I found this great tailor, but they charged me $50 to hem a pair of jeans. But the thing is that the same tailor who takes in your Gucci blazer may not be the same tailor that should hem your Levi's. And
Mhm.
so, how do we start to make it as easy as finding a restaurant on open table to find a tailor or a cobbler or a jewelry care specialist through a fashion care matchmaking service?
I feel
That's
like I could break
wild.
my neck just like, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. All of that. Yes.
That's wild. Like, that's so interesting. I've never really consolidated that train of thought, um, that tailors are kind of I don't even know, like, what are they like? They're like chefs, like, so all chefs can cook, but some are good at Italian, some are good at, like, Haitian, some all these different things. Like, I remember when I was working at a store, a boutique store, people got all mad because the hemming a pair of jeans was almost double hemming a pair of pants. And we had to, like, fight these people all the time, and just explain to them why having a pair of jeans is so much more and what goes into it, and they were like, "But you're doing the same thing." I was like, "We're absolutely not doing the same thing."
And you
And
can't blame the customer for not knowing
right,
because
absolutely.
such an opaque industry. And I think part of the reasons why sometimes it's more expensive is due to that a lot of these tailors or a brand like doesn't know how much business they're going to get. So when business is unstable, the business that they get has to be more expensive. So the more standards and benchmarks you create, the more opportunities for business create, and the less expensive it becomes as a market.
That's a really good point too.
Yeah.
The consistency factor.
I say the open table, but basically open table, ZocDoc, Airbnb. Open table for restaurants, ZocDoc for doctors, Airbnb for hospitality. They all took these antiquated, fragmented industries and modernized them through technology. And that's all we're doing for fashion care, right? We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just finding the next category that's ripe for innovation. And so on the other side of that, you're looking at who's paying for it. And the reason we're launching with brands is because brands have the most to gain by supporting this kind of work because they're getting retention. And so the fashion industry has a 26% retention rate, which is one of the lowest of any sectors. So how are they supporting that full extended brand experience that doesn't end at the register? They're doing it through this after sales experiences like alterations and repairs. And
That's
that
gotta be oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's gotta be insane for what you were talking about before with churn and this idea of, like, sell-through, like retail sell-through, how much you get through on a product, because you can take a snapshot at any point in time, like, post a season dropping and find different numbers and different statistics because of things like return or people who are, you know, donating things after they get it because they can't return it or whatever. It ends up in the secondhand market. So that's got to be an interesting, super like great sales point for pitching these retail spaces.
Oh, absolutely. Um, Brands without any of this infrastructure, it could cost them up to $100,000 a year, if not more, to bring a tailor in store. And not only that, but think of it being an omni-channel solution. Think of shipping something to someone, and if the only problem is that it needs a little tweak here and there, and they're returning it because it just is too long, being able to say, "Hey, you're going to return this. There's a tailor within a 10 block radius of you or within a 5-minute drive of you. Also, we got your back. We're going to pay for it." How would you not think, okay, this is a great and convenient way to support that last mile to perfect fit?
Yep. And
That's
feel like you
one.
get something custom almost in a way because now it's made for you, literally.
Yeah. How so obviously you don't arrive to this train of thought without years of experience and like seeing it. Like what got you here? Like where were you in the retail space? And like how did you start to see this become an issue?
Yeah. All right. So
Ah,
I was a shoe designer for 17 years. I have built product for Beyonce, her company Darian. I've built product for Kenneth Cole. And I've also built product for everyone from Costco to Target to Marshalls and TJ Maxx. So my joke is that there is a landfill out there with my name on it that I am personally responsible for. Um, and I found myself getting a master's in sustainability, um, not because I was seeking it out, but more because I always say I was following the breadcrumbs. Um, Ran into a friend. We were talking about work, and I hadn't seen her in 7 years. We're on a train together, and she was working for a school, GCNYC, which is where I went, which is now IENYC. And we had a conversation about faux fur. And so, again, I've been to China over 50 times. I've seen the supply chain at the depths of, southern China to northern China, traveled around. And we were saying how like people don't understand that the actual like environmental impact of faux fur is different but just as bad as regular fur if uh sourced more effectively, right? And so um started talking about that. Ended up 3 weeks later, I had got a grant from the UN, part of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, were aligned with this Masters of Sustainability. So they were giving away these fellowships or grants, and so I was in a master's program 3 weeks later.
Wow.
It was very unexpected, and in my master's program, I was so busy. I was traveling to China. I was working full time. I was uh, taking in person classes 2 to 3 days a week. And I hired a TaskRabbit to come help me purge my apartment. Like I felt so overwhelmed. I was like, I just need some support. I need to like clean out my space, clean out my brain, the whole that whole like thing you do. And she came over and she pulled a bag out of the back of my closet and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's alterations." And it's funny because now having been an entrepreneur for several years, people are always like, the story you should tell is that you got those alterations done and you had someone come to your house and it was super cheap. That's not what happened. What actually happened was I was like, just donate it. Like, I don't like I got no time for that. And what I always think back to is I took the things I was most excited about, the things I have the most vision for, the things that had slight tweaks, but were good enough for me to be like, I want this enough to make sure that I make it fit perfectly. And those are the things I got rid of. And then I had a whole closet of like mediocre fine. And so while getting this master's, I was doing like a social entrepreneurship class, thinking of like ways to support the industry. Everyone was like, build a sustainable footwear brand. Great, would love to. The infrastructure does not exist for there actually to be a sustainable footwear. Like, and it's still a puzzle being solved. There are great people trying to do it. It was not a problem I wanted to solve, nor do I think it exists even at this time. And so, was sitting with a friend, another friend. I call her my muse, and she was like, "When I was in college, I would do alterations as a way to make extra cash." That was 2019. And the next day, I was like, this is my life's purpose. I did my master's thesis on democratizing fashion customization. How do we support care and repair as a sustainable practice and part of the full circularity of fashion? Think there are three tenets to circularity: it's design, it's keeping items in use as long as possible, it's regenerative agriculture. We are literally one of the three of those things. And so it was wildly underserved, wildly undervalued. And I saw this gap in the market that both had the opportunity to help the planet, help the people, help the profit. And so that is uh, the very long version of how I got to where I am today.
I love it. It's the perfect, like, it's not a Cinderella story, but it's that idea of like out of the ashes of what
Last
you were
flipper.
Right.
Yep.
experiencing, like the phoenix, right?
I'll take it.
Right? We love it. And it's so interesting that like you like it's evolved, right? Like it wasn't just like you had this idea and it's like straight line into what you're gonna do. Like you and I met through the Stitch Collective and kind of a little like getting to know each other type of thing. And you were doing something a little bit different at the time. And just to see like the way that the path has shifted and moved for you. And now like I would love for you to share with the listener too about like the grants that you had been like winning, some of the capital drivers that you've been going through, and like kind of where you're at today. Like where is Alternew in this process, and where do you see it going in the next few years, few months too?
Yeah. So kind of a little recap on 2019 to today. So started with a mobile tailoring business. Our tailors come to you. Um, and that was 2020. Obviously, we were supposed to launch March of 2020. That didn't happen, but we were able to do the New York City Face Mask Initiative. We made 40,000 masks for frontline providers. We had donors, we had drivers, we had sewers. And it was this great experience where I got to flex my leadership muscles in kind of the more values based leadership space. And so did that. Then went back into mobile tailoring. It's a feature, it's not a scalable business. And so the thing about businesses is we can make the most impact if we do scale, especially for this industry. And so the problem for tailors is they didn't want to travel. The problem for consumers is they didn't want to pay for the cost that it would take to travel. Then went into, okay, met my co-founder, incorporated a new business, said, how do we build a marketplace to connect consumers to tailors? Tailors were saying, sure, I'd love new business, but I can barely manage what I have today, and I don't really have that much. But like, I'm here's my studio, and here's like the 1,700 pieces of paper of the people that I'm trying to work on, and here's the bunch of clothing that like I haven't even been able to like give back to people because they're not picking it up because there's no way for me to remind them. I'm just like throwing it away after 6 months. Or uh, that would be my problem. Or, people I know who are like, I go in on the day it's supposed to be done, and they're like, well, it's not done today. I'm sorry. Like, we're like, okay, this feels like a problem to be solved. Like, as an entrepreneur, the secret to success is like constantly asking why, right? Like, okay, why and how do you solve for that? Then we became Tech for Tailors. How do we support tailors creating a robust solution to modernize operations, which was great, but it wasn't supporting them to their current needs, which are new business. How do you actually use tools to get new business? It's great because it's theoretically a return on your investment because in making more efficiencies, you're able to provide more time to get more business. But it doesn't today provide enough of an incentive to a tailor to adopt and pay for technology. And at the end of the day, if we don't make money, we can't be a business. And so that's when, again, I got my master's in sustainability and I've been a footwear designer for 17 years. I saw and know a lot of people in the fashion industry at very high levels. I'm not 22, so I know, the VPs and executives at different fashion brands, and so started doing some discovery calls with them. We had gotten into a tech accelerator by this point, got funding from them, and we were able to do these 50 discovery calls and realized that if we could connect a brand and their customers to a vetted network of tailors, not only could we be paid, but we could start to build the roadmap to scale accessibility to alterations and repairs. And so that's how we got to where we are today. And now today, we've now raised our pre-seed. We're actually going to be raising 3 to 4 million in the next few months, figuring out exactly what we need for exactly what we want. But the idea is we already have launched a pilot this week with Therity, who has been an incredible partner. Thank you so much. Um, they're so involved in sustainability. They've just become a B Corp. They work with a ton of biomaterials. And so they see this value in this after sales service, not only providing a sustainable opportunity, but also providing loyalty.
Yeah.
And we also have LOIs from Everlane and from Moose Knuckles. And we are in conversation, final contract negotiations with a $15 billion brand to elevate their internal tailoring services. Because at the end of the day, it's really about modernizing operations to be able to bring data to the core and learning more about your customer and your clothing. So if you know that 30 of your customers have gotten the same type of zipper fix on the same jean, you can take that back to your manufacturer. If you know the same button is breaking, you can use that to inform future purchasing decisions. So, this is all about personalization, predictive insight, supporting your customer from the ground up at a time when they need you most. And it's totally disconnected right now from the brand experience.
The data's fascinating.
You know?
Fascinating. Because I've always like being a person in bridal, for example, this actually happened to us the other day. We were giving like a little review for a wedding dress. And immediately off the bat, all of us could see that something was a little bit askew with this pattern. And this dress is already in production. So if I know that every single person coming in, the average gal, is going to need a bust alteration, and I can give you feedback to change that in production, we are now saving that experience for everybody along the line. So the customer has a better outcome from the get go. We have less like of a lift to do on the workload where it's more manageable and less convoluted, and everybody winds up happier in the end. So, but it's so hard, even as a person who is a tailor and a seamstress, to get those channels upstream to try and help at the start, really at the factory level.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think the thing you didn't say is that everybody saves money.
Absolutely.
You save on labor, you can get to the next dress more quickly. The brand saves on like not only are they saving cost on correcting an item for future production, it might be a cheaper way to do it. It might be something that's more expensive, but they're really saving on is that customer being happier with the item and willing to come back more often. Because if an item
Absolutely.
fits, you're more likely to continue to go to the store. And the one thing I say all the time, and every time I say it, people are like, oh, which is, you ready for it?
Ready.
Clothes mass produced, bodies are not.
That's good.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Uh, it is we blame ourselves for the clothes that don't fit. We blame the factories, we blame the stores, but at the end of the day, there's no such thing as the perfect fit until you make it the perfect fit.
Yeah.
Amen,
Really.
sister.
I really I love that. You know, it's so shocking to me how the mindset is just get people spending money. Like that's kind of the capitalistic corporate mindset, even in the face of like, but this option's better for you as a company. They're like, it doesn't matter as long as the customer's coming back, coming back, coming back. Because, you know, I think the devil's advocate side of the wedding industry is I don't need a return customer for the wedding dress. So who cares if that bust problem exists because they only need to buy it once. And if they're unhappy, well, that's on them. They can go spend money elsewhere. They've already bought the dress. I'm on to the next customer. And it's shocking to me that that's where we are. But I do think that it's not a sustainable, like, you can't maintain this level of output in terms of clothing. Like, it's outrageous, and I do think that just in the face of sheer common sense and, like you're saying, dollars and revenue, it will come to a point where it's like, what you're doing makes no sense monetarily. Like, we have to fix these things, and looking
Yeah.
at
And I
those.
think the only thing I would say back to you on the whole idea of capitalism, I'm not against capitalism. I'm fine with you guys making money. The problem is you're not making money.
Yeah.
When you're spending $200 billion on return and churn, that i- it's not a, a great feedback loop. You're
Yeah,
missing a huge piece of where you could be driving value for your customer that drives profit to the business. The
yeah,
problem is because it is an opaque space and there's not a lot of data here today, brands are have not been able to see the return. So even brands that have internal tailoring have not used that data effectively to support profitability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we're working to do is working with these brands to say, okay, here's the data we're going to capture. Here's how we're going to support this. And here's where we're going to save you money, make you money, create new customers. So we're creating this benchmark data that we're, uh, looking at how we can grow, how we can save, that can then be used as case studies to move forward. And I will say, the only thing I will say is, only thing. Uh, I will say that this is currently in a flywheel. I'm very lucky to be at a time where alterations and repairs are becoming more exciting, not just to the consumer, but to the brand. If you look at, Nordstrom, Patagonia, they are kind of the first movers, have always had this baked into their business model, and they have a cult following because of it, right?
Yep.
That is part of who they are. Then you look at companies like Veja, Arc'teryx, um, they are building it into their model because they see it as creating this opportunity. Arc'teryx came out with information that 20 to 25% use their repair program, and those that do, there's another study that says those that use the repair programs are 73% more likely to return another time that year. And so, in a time where repeat business is very hard to come by because there's so much saturation in the market, brands are eager to differentiate themselves. And so, we're getting these conversations because of that.
Yeah, and I think
Wild.
it's almost like a response to Melissa and I talked about this on a previous episode, which was, we were talking about that documentary Buy Now and how items and products are being made, like that planned obsolescence. They're being made to break and made to be terrible to bring you back. But it's almost like, um, the correction from the problem Volvo had, where the products were so good that customers weren't coming back and they almost faced bankruptcy. So they had to make the cars worse to get customers back. Everything that you're talking about is definitely kind of seems like in a response to that, the market trying to correct itself. But now we're seeing that, okay, that's swinging back too far. Now in a place where we're leaving money on the table. Like I know that I get kind of when I sell a client a suit for $6,000, I still can depend on maybe $500-600 of alterations for the next couple of years if they gain or lose weight, if they need to change something, whatever may happen, that customer is still generating revenue after the sale's already done. But one thing I also thought was interesting is the manufacturer that I use, it's a small manufacturer. We have conversations with the manufacturer, some of the biggest dealers of the manufacturer, have conversations with them like once a month to say, okay, hey, here's some feedback. I noticed that there was this ripple here, or this zipper was kind of a pain, or this. And the manufacturer has told us, like, oh, yeah, we actually had a whole batch of lining that didn't pass QC. And so we're going to correct that. Or one machine was not calibrated. One of the basting machines wasn't calibrated over the summer. And so 4 or 5 of my suits had like the basting stuck in it. And I had to tell them, I was like, "This is a pain for me to get out because I don't have, like, a professional press machine at my showroom." And you're not getting that kind of conversation. If you're selling Faraday in your boutique store, you may not have that level of transparency back and forth just because they're a little bit of a bigger brand. So anything above like a small retailer, and I'm only naming Faraday just because they you brought them up, and like not to say that they're bad, but they are a name. And like just to point out the chain of command that like issues need to get rung through, no matter the company's intent, is also a part of the problem.
Right. So that's what's so cool about what you're offering, though, is a way to extrapolate and collect data to dish right back to them, which I think also like it's amazing for the brand, but at the same time, from the consumer perspective and where the brand's gonna love it is that building of brand loyalty, where if I know that this is a service provided by this company, I am more likely to go shop there off the bat, much like that Arc'teryx statistic that you were sharing too. Like, I would rather put my money somewhere that I feel good about even if it costs me a little bit more than somewhere that's garbage. It just feels better. It just feels better.
And I think it's worth actually sharing kind of how our tech works, because
Yeah.
I do think it can feel like, you don't have tailors and you're matching. So basically, how it works today and what we're doing with this Faraday pilot is a customer walks into the store, they try on a pair of pants, the hem is too long. Instead of losing the sales associate is now logging an alteration request into our tech. They're getting the customer's information, and then that customer is getting a text notification with appointment details, with where to go, pricing, and then they're getting real-time updates throughout the experience. So no different than your pizza tracker or your like Grubhub delivery. The thing we're trying to confirm is, you know, think of this as like a tech enabled tailor matching. You go to a store, you ask if they do alterations, are like, not in store, but here's the guy we use. And they go, great, buy my jacket, get taking it over. We are finding people asking us, "Oh, does the store associate not do it internally and then ship it out?" And there are emerging players providing this kind of centralized solution. The problem is, and Melissa, I see you nodding and I know exactly what you're thinking, is that kind of it's not just quality, it's actually such a burden on the store associate. The store associate is looking to sell more. The customer leads and they spend 20 minutes logging in all the information on the item because there is stuff to be logged, especially, we talk about all this like let 3D scanning, like those are great, but at the end of the day, like consumers are not ready to just have that happen. So how do you support this tech enabled piece to where the customer goes in, is still going to a tailor, but they're getting an experience that feels more modern to them.
Yeah,
And
and I think
then,
sorry. I was
no,
gonna
no,
say,
go ahead.
the thing that makes it overcome too, like, I'm imagining myself as you're telling this, telling about the experience, I'm imagining myself going through that step-by-step experience, right? I think the thing that's the big selling point for me as the consumer is the fact that it's free. Because there are a couple things where I'm like, "Oh, but maybe I would want the tailor in-house. Oh, but that creates a whole other set of problems." Like, it's very inefficient unless you are going to be like the Nordstrom's that has a back room that has actual machines, you have the tailor on site, all that stuff. And subsequently with that, like unless my sales associate is a tailor, I don't want them marking my pants. I don't know that they know what they're doing. I want to go to a professional. So I think the big thing for me is like, oh, you've set me up with the knowledge of where I'm going and what I'm doing. You highly trusted and vetted this professional and it's free. Okay, great. Like I'll make the extra trip to go do that. And then maybe while I'm at it, I'm going to bring my other stuff that I've had sitting at home and I can get this independent tailor to do these other things. So you're establishing this relationship that goes so much farther than just in those four walls of that retail brand.
So, two things there. One, you are able to, in the notification you get, you can go now. So you can go straight to the tailor or you can book. so you can actually make an appointment. So if you do have items at home to also bring in, you can take a bag of stuff, right? So
It's a
it's a discovery platform for tailors. On the other side of that, payment actually, we have not tested enough. We actually think there's enough value to the customer in just finding the tailor that they wouldn't have had before, that they're willing to pay for it. So right now we're testing out different incentives with Faraday, with the other brands we're speaking to. Some options are it's free to the VIP clients, very similar to Nordstrom. Others is it's discount, but on days when we're doing an activation with them where we're bringing a tailor in store, then it's free for the day. So we're working on different pricing structures because we actually do believe that just the act of referring a vetted tailor when you don't have one is enough to help someone build that relationship.
yeah.
Having said
I would pay
that,
a subscription fee for that. I feel like the average
and
consumer would pay for that knowledge.
I think to your point, that goes into like the entrepreneurship journey. Like, how are you pricing things? What does that look like? Is it a membership? Is it the brand charging a warranty or some sort of like, okay, you get up to four, if you pay $20 for the next 2.5 years, you get, $150 worth of any sort of alterations or repairs on this item. There's so many ways to uh charge and for the customer to pay. It's all a matter of testing. So that's really what we're doing right now, and understand what the customer is willing to pay, what the brand's willing to pay, what the tailor's willing to pay, and making sure that we're bringing the most value to each of our stakeholders.
Very cool.
That is wild. I think, to that point, and it's kind of how we started the conversation, it like tailoring and having that product knowledge, it's just lost on so many of us today. And most consumers don't even know what questions to ask. Like they don't even know how to,
You shouldn't have to.
yeah, they don't even know, like they don't have the vocabulary to express what needs to be different. They just don't get it. And I think that, yeah, but at the same time, the tailors and a lot of people doing the work can't get access to the brands. So it's like you've got these three segments. You've got the brand, you've got the consumer, and you got the tailors fixing it. None of them are talking. And I think that that's really the very exciting part is that people can like really talk. I always talk about this one client I had who was so excited to tell me that he went to Keaton and bought a blazer. It was $12,000 and he bought it in Paris at the Keaton flagship store. He came back, he wore it twice, and the sleeve started to separate from the body because the fabric was so delicate. It was 100% cashmere and like the highest form. It never should have been made into a garment. And it's like, who at Keton let this happen? Like, it was literally like gauze, and of course, just the guy, just by raising his hand to, like, shake people's hands, was separating the sleeve from the rest of the body for $12,000. And it was like, how have brands gotten to this point where a lot of brands also because the barrier to entry to start a brand is pretty low also. To start a brand, you don't need
It's
to have
not
much.
existing.
Yeah,
I have a precedent.
you don't need to have much product knowledge. So even starting a brand, you might not know what you should or shouldn't be making pants out of, or what you should or shouldn't be making jackets out of.
And
Like
people don't
I
want to invest in the R&D anymore because that costs money. So why are you going to waste your like precious fabric to make samples and test them out and look at wear and tear? It's just another step that stops you from getting to market faster and getting your money back, basically.
Yeah,
And
and
they're
I
but
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say one more thing, like, in my industry, I also have to compete with the fabric mills that are also responding to customer demand. So, in the past several years, bamboo has had a huge surge, but bamboo is an ass fabric, like, that fabric sucks, and, like, you can't make pants out of it because it starts to bend to your knee and, like, starts to stretch. So, people just see, like, "Oh, I got my bamboo suit. It's light and it's summery." You just see the fabric, and yet you wouldn't know unless you made it and saw it be worn over a couple of seasons. "Oh, that fabric sucks." But, when you just get a new book of spring, summer swatches, you don't know what to not make or not make out of the fabrics, and the fabric mill doesn't care. They just care as long as you're buying it. So, like, that it's like that's like another kink in the whole thing. It's like, where are
well,
you getting the fabric from?
so I think that's such an interesting point of understanding the way in which textiles are cared for and
Yeah.
repaired, and even going back to how they're made. And it is a feedback loop that is missing a big piece of the feedback, which is the consumer experience, right? And I think Melissa was alluding to this earlier. We actually just won a grant from eBay and CFDA's Circular Fashion Fund, um, and I think what's exciting about that is eBay is resale. We are a value prop, not just to the buyers who might need something altered, but we're actually a value prop to the sellers who can get more for their product if they've repaired it first. On the other side, so that's one loop. On the other side, you have CFDA, and this goes more to what you're talking about with mills, with understanding the way product is made. So, with CFDA, what does the next generation of designers look like? How are they not just supporting the design, but how are we actually looking at tailors as valued assets to how clothes are made, how they're built? We should actually be celebrating this artisanship as loudly and as elaborately as we're celebrating designers who are making products, because there's just as much skill that goes into these different things, and there shouldn't be this kind of, I always say that this is the backbone of the fashion industry, and it should have more celebration and it should be supported more because that is the kind of information you're getting from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that I love. Like, I always had an affinity since I was a young teenager. I love the Valentino brand, and I love that in recent years they have been bringing out all of their seamstresses and sewing team and tailors out onto the runway at the end of the shows, because those are the actual hands creating the work that you see, and it's hours and hours and hours for these, like, couture houses and stuff. Or I think of, like, I don't know if you guys follow him, Matthew Reisman, who's like, kind of spearheaded the hashtag "Not Just a Tailor," and the idea is that, like, he's doing celebrity stuff for the red carpet. He does, like, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and, like, all these people, and he's getting these, like, incredibly immaculate fits on everything from, like, evening wear to, like, these, like, lycra suits that they're wearing for their shows and stuff. And so he's and inventing things and creating stuff that matches along, like, it's just outstanding from a style perspective. But those celebrities, just like any old person, were not making it out of the house, or you're not making it onto the red carpet without looking your best. Like, it's just a different way of appreciation. And I think, like, we've talked, Nancy, you and I, like, in, other circles about this undervalued industry. Like, that's my mantle that I've looked to take up, in my lifetime, that just bringing it out of the shadows and reviving it for young people. And one of the things I was curious about thus far, is how have you found, like, finding tailors and sewing professionals to connect with? Has that been difficult? Are people feeling like there's just so much work and they're overwhelmed, or they're kind of in the middle? Are you running into trouble like with older generations that are retiring? What are you seeing?
So it's a question not of how, if we're connecting or how hard it is. It's how curious are we in the way we're supporting them, so we're giving them the right product to meet their needs. And so we spent a lot of time building like a very easy to use tool for the store associates, with the thought that they're really busy, they're trying to just get to the next customer, and very thoughtfully created something they love. On the tailor side, we built a very robust solution that does not meet their needs today. And so what we did was we listened and we said, you know what? We're going to build something that makes it just as easy for you as a tailor to support what we need from you while still being able to get to your next customer, as we did for the sales associate. Because we kind of didn't think about it the same way. And since we've done that, we've absolutely been able to bring more tailors in. And then as we grow that, then you get into the kind of the flywheel of, okay, now we'll start putting in more of those features. How can we help you with a toast for tailors? How can we be your POS system? How can we help you build a business in a box? But we started by doing that. And that was what allows us to have proprietary data we're giving to brands. However, we need to make sure that we're creating the feedback loop that does serve each of those stakeholders.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, where can like tailors and other professionals find you?
Alternew.com, or email me, Nancy at alternew.com, or send a smoke signal. We'll figure it out. We will uh
We will get to you.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I we are also very lucky to have, we've talked so much about how many different pieces of the puzzle this is helping to solve. So we have a board of strategic advisors that have helped us really capture a lot of these people. So we have advisors from Burberry, from Valentino, from Vestiaire Collective, from Calvin Klein. We have a textile and textile chemistry expert, because
Oh,
it's really understanding that full lifetime value of the product and where we can best support. Because if we know the way product is made, we can actually be part of pioneering ways to care for that product. We have brands that are like using apple leather, and they're like, I don't know how, I have customers reaching out like, do I take this to a cobbler? Do I take it to like, how do I work with this? And they don't know what to say. So if we can be at the forefront of solving those problems, we're really just creating the future of fashion care, literally.
Yeah.
Now, one
100%.
ad that is an advisor is Melissa Otto herself. It's
Yay.
so amazing to have you, and I can't wait to do our like official intro. But the whole point of saying that was to get to you and appreciating that. I think your expertise and your excitement about what we're doing just like adds so much to how we feel about what the future of this industry looks like.
That's
It's
so cool.
it's the only way. It's the only way that we go forward without completely making worse the situation that we've let get too far as it is with clothing and consumerism.
Yeah. Now, Melissa, can you explain just a little bit about what that looks like? Like, what was it? What did that look like start to finish? Like getting set up with Alternew.
We actually just started, so we haven't gotten set up yet. We
Oh,
just talked
okay.
about this like last week, so we're
Oh,
fresh
okay.
and new.
And
Beautiful.
and Melissa, think of Melissa like, Melissa's actually not our ICP, our ideal customer profile today. She is genuinely a strategic advisor for Alternew. She is helping us
Gotcha.
with her expertise, being a tailor, working with tailors, understanding the industry. at a level that is very few have. And she's also built a community of thousands of people who are under are understanding, but also like very uh not supportive. Anyway, just are want to be part of this industry, and she's creating community for them. And so having her advising us through her own experience is giving us ways not just to solve problems today, but how do we build our roadmap for tomorrow?
Yep. And it's great
What
that we as the Stitch Collective, which you were talking about, is I think supportive is the perfect word. I think that so many people who wanted to be involved in Stitch Collective, and that's how you and I got in touch in the first place, is people are ready for this. So not just industry professionals and people who sell, but I think that the consumer, like you said, we're in a unique time right now that people are ready to receive this information. I think if this was like the early 2000s, people would still you'd be like shouting into the vacuum, right? People are more interested, I think, than ever in care and repair. I think seeing this next generation of sewing professionals, we are more than ready to like take a step out into the sunlight and go like, "Hey, we're here and we're so excited to help you." And so just connecting like we've talked about so much in this time together, connecting all of those pieces is like just going to be a super bright future forward for everybody.
I like to say the day when people talk about their fashion care, not their fashion haul.
Yes. Yes. Please.
get that on a bumper sticker.
No, for real. I will stick it all over everywhere. I'll be your first sale for that.
Amazing. Well, Nancy, we've taken up way too much of your time. We really appreciate you. This is it's so cool because it's definitely, I mean, to everything that we were saying today, it's not something most people think about on a weekly basis, monthly basis in their lifetime. So, I mean, I think that there we are on the right track. I think documentaries coming out like by now, it's stuff like that. There is a want for this. And it's gonna take a lot of screaming and shouting to get people to like focus and say, look, there is like we aren't
Change the
I would say
behavior.
less
hopeless.
screaming and shouting and more operational efficiency. Really, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm always very clear that like you look at restaurants 15 years ago, if someone told you you were going to sleep on someone's like bed at a different house 10 years, like
Yeah.
15 years, like what would you have said?
Yeah.
So I think it really is just about efficiency and technology supporting
Yeah.
innovation in an industry ready for it.
Yes.
100% ready and 100% in need of an innovative kick in the pants.
Absolutely. All right, Nancy. Well, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you. And we'll tag all your socials here below in the link and everywhere else, alternew.com. And what was the email one more time?
Nancy at alternate.com.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Nancy, well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. This has been amazing. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to another episode of The Fabric of America.